Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 22, Migration and Development. And our topic is Rural and Urban Migration Flows. During the 1960s, migration was still dominated by local rural migration that had characterized Indian migration for most of the century. However, this period witnessed an increase in number of short distance rural to urban migration to local and regional urban centers. Long distance migration, although still a minor aspect of India's migration system, was dominated by movements to urban areas, which involve moves up the urban hierarchy. This decade also represents a period of substantial growth in urban economies and the associated stagnation of small towns. Thus, this period saw the beginning of the urbanization process in India. Although it started primarily in the form of long distance moves, the increase in urbanization has continued as the importance of rural to urban migration increases in the Indian migration system. During the 1960s, the outflow from rural to urban areas was 14.6% of all migration, but 1970s this had increased to 15.3% and further to 17.7% in 1991. Despite the increase in rural-urban migration in India since the 1960s, rural migration continues to dominate the migration system. In 1991, 64.5% of all migration had been between rural areas. A majority of those participating in rural migration are female due to the prevalence of patriarchal marriages, although such a process has been in operation throughout the country. It has been suggested by some that Indian marriage market has become much wider, with longer distances apparent in the marriage system. A product of this has been an increase in distances involved in rural migration, with an increase in the number of interstate rural bound migrations. The development of increased technological agricultural methods and the resultant increase in demand for agricultural labor in the northwest of India acted to participate an increase in the number of long distance rural movements by increasing the opportunities for agricultural work. The remaining combinations of rural and urban migration, urban rural and urban continues to form only minor aspects of the migration system in India. Urban migration accounts for approximately 12% of the total migration since the increase in urbanization during the 1960s. A majority of urban migration is in the form of an upward movement through the urban hierarchy. It has been argued that such migration is dominated by public servants and those employed in service sectors who wish to improve employment by moving to larger urban areas with potentially higher wages. Thus, most movements occur from urban areas with low per capita incomes to those with higher per capita incomes. Urban to rural migration has consistently constituted the lowest percentage of total migration. In general, it is thought that an increase in rural to urban migration precipitates a parallel move of people out from urban area into urban suburb. However, there exists no empirical evidence to suggest that this theory of migratory behavior is applicable in the Indian context. It has been pointed out that the lack of employment in urban areas is the major factor behind urban-rural migration. In addition, it is argued that the return of temporary workers may form a substantial section of this migratory stream. It is also reported that returned migrants may be those who have finished their economically productive lives in the urban areas and are returning to their rural origins. Those who own agricultural land are the most likely to take part in this form of migration. Now let us move to the next point, characteristics of migrants. The study of the characteristics of mobile population is an area much neglected in Indian demography. Despite the availability of the census data on migration by age, sex and marital status, a majority of the literature on this subject refers to small-scale empirical studies, from which the general characteristics of all migrants are hypothesized. The principal characteristics of Indian migration is age selectivity. It has been shown that the age group 20 to 35 are by far the most migratory group. However, female migrants tend to be younger than their male counterparts due to the practice of the patrilocal marriages. This age selectivity is apparent in all migration streams at both the intrastate and interstate level, and this is the only characteristic that is universal to all migration streams in India. Each of the migration streams in operation in India is strongly sex selective. At the intrastate level, female dominate the rural to rural stream, accounting for more than 2/3 of all migrants. This domination is attributable to the process of marriage migration by female between rural areas. The rural-urban and urban-urban streams are both predominantly male-oriented, and at the interstate level, all migration streams are male-dominated. The ratio of migrating females to the total migrants varies inversely with the distance of migration, emphasizing the male domination of the long distance rural-urban and urban-urban movements. The main reason behind such sex selectivity lies in the causes of migration. It is hypothesized that males migrate predominantly for economic reasons, while females migrate for marriage. Therefore, those streams with urban destinations and perceived greater economic gains will attract more male than female migrants. When the males migrate to urban areas, females remain behind to provide a sense of familiar security in the rural areas. A study of the effects of male selective migration from Kerala discovered that at the household level, the major impact was an improvement in income due to the flow of remittances. However, this male domination of rural to urban migration is not uniform throughout the India. Such migration is more selective of males in the north of India, and in the south there is a trend towards increasing female participation in the rural-urban migration. The greater male selectiveness of migration in the north has been attributed to both the caste system and the religion. The prevalence of dual caste in the south has led to female participation in migration. As such castes are usually landless, and thus the need for spousal separation to ensure land security in the rural areas is reduced. The stronger influence of Islam in the north has restrained female migration, resulting in masculine sex ratio in many northern cities. However, the participation of females in all migration streams has been increasing during the last 2 decades. This trend is particularly apparent in the rural-urban stream, which has been attributed to increases in the rates of female participation in education and labor force. It has been reported that females in the untouchable class and in the South India have shown major increases in their rates of labor force participation, and that this has participated the migrating of women for economic reasons. The increasing number of female urban migrants has led to an increase in the number of female employed in unskilled work in the urban areas of South India. The increase in female educational participation has increased female labor force participation, thus creating economic incentives for females to migrate. Migration theory suggests that the rural to urban migration is economically selective, with most migrants originating from the low income groups and as a result remaining in the low income strata once in the urban areas. Such a process does not adequately explain the economic selectivity of rural urban migration in India. In India, it is both the poor and the rich who migrate, rather than in general the poorest, the middle, or the richest. It is suggested that for the poor, migration to urban areas is a survival strategy against decreasing productivity in rural areas, whereas for the rich, such migration is a strategy of economic accumulation. The economic position of the migrant may not only provide the stimulus for migration, but also provide the means of migration. The poor do not have the means to make the move, thus they remain instituted in the area where they live, while becoming further prosperous through the introduction of laborers from other rural areas. It has been shown that the propensity to migrate to an urban area is highest among educated people in rural areas. As a result, the depletion of rural areas in the India is occurring with the out migration of the capital holding education sectors. The availability of Western style employment in the major urban areas, particularly in the mega cities, provides the main attraction for such migrants. The rural areas may hold greater economic security for unskilled and uneducated, for which employment is scarce in the cities. Also, it has been reported that the upper castes are most migratory than the lower castes. suggesting that the castes that are no longer functionally integrated into the village economy are more mobile than others. Migration in India has a history of short distance female dominated rural movements. The past 4 decades have seen slight increases in the numbers involved in migration, with the gradual emergence of migration streams with urban destinations involving longer distances movements. Recent changes in the economic activities of females are acting to slowly change the sex selectivity of some migration streams. The growth of urban areas and the resultant creation of industrial based employment have created economic incentives for migration based predominantly on urban areas. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with a self-learning podcast.